All right, so this morning we're going to be talking about God of the mundane. And we're going to be kicking it off with Luke 5. So those of you who have your Bibles with you, we're going to be starting at verse 1. Adam apparently cracked up a bit of a debate when he was preaching last time about physically having the Word of God versus your phone. And we've had quite some good discussions with people about that. I personally like holding the Word of God. So I'm old school. Look, I have paper notes. Aaron's probably thinking, what even is that? All right, here we go. Luke 5, verse 1. One day as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, I practiced that. Anyway, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats, left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When he finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets." When they'd done so, they'd caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signalled their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of the fish they had taken. All right, I want you to park that just for a little bit, because this morning I'm going to share about something that's really quite dear to my heart. And it's something that I want you to think about and to consider. And that would be that some of the most life-changing or life-defining moments you can have in your discipleship journey are one-on-one times with Jesus when you're in the mundane. I just realised, let me fix this. When you're one-on-one with Jesus in the reality of your life. So at church, we're looking at discipleship this year. I love it. I think it's a brilliant topic. But what I want to encourage you with is the weeks that happen when we're not in the God spaces, when we're not in these God environments, when we're out in the mundane, doing the life day in, day out. What does it actually look like to have God woven in my week with me? So why am I asking us to even have a think about this? Because God is in our week, but the moments when he comes and speaks to us, they don't often feel like spiritual moments. It's not with resounding worship in the background. It's not necessarily a preacher coming from the front. They're these little interruptions in your week. They're sometimes just a few seconds, but they're actually him in our week. And I want to make sure we don't miss these moments. So this started for me a couple of months ago. Aaron came into staff worship and he had been listening to a podcast. Very sorry, we can't find, I think it was a podcast. We can't find who it came from. But Aaron was sharing about the concept of us having a conference God and a Sunday God. So a conference God, think about when you're at a conference, at the end of the conference or even at the beginning, the expectation you come in with. He's a God who can do anything and miracles are going to break out and I'm going to sing my lungs out. And once you've been brewing in everybody's faith for a few days, I mean, that's an amazing feeling that you exit the building with, right? You've got your conference God. He is the almighty God who can do anything. Then we get to our Sundays. High chance our Sunday God is a cool God. He may or may not do miracles. And he can do anything. Let's see, if I pray, it may or may not get answered. So there's a little bit of a different expectation between our conference God and possibly our Sunday God. So I took it one step further and I thought, well, what do we think about our Monday God? What are our expectations about our God as we head into this week, as we head into our Mondays? So these moments in the mundane, for me personally, have been some of my life-defining or discipleship-defining moments with Jesus. you've not seen or heard them. Some of the stories I'm happily sharing with you today, but if you ask me, I would have a million more in the background. And I can tell you they didn't come necessarily in these spiritual moments, but they came when Jesus had joined with me in my week. So one such example was actually the other week, I was grumbling about doing the washing. Does anybody else here hate doing the washing? Like, hand on heart. You can never achieve the task. It's never complete. You can get to the bottom of the basket, but then it's bath time and the basket's full again. It just drives me crazy. I just think, how can we have so many things that we have to wash? Anyway, I'm grateful, but I grumble when I do the washing. So literally just a couple of weeks ago, while I was grumbling doing the washing, shoving the clothes in the washing machine, I just had this thought fly through my head that caught my attention. And it said, what you're doing is really important. You're placing dignity upon your family by giving them clean clothes. Well, that has significantly changed my disposition towards washing. I still find it frustrating that you can never actually complete the job, but it did change my disposition towards washing, and that absolutely was a God spark for me. And I needed him to remind me the why of what I'm doing. And he spoke a language to me that made sense, because placing dignity upon my family is something that I truly value. And so he was using words. I mean, that was literally 3 seconds, and then I went out and, I don't know, Jack's probably had a dirty nappy and the kids were crying or hungry. They were probably hungry, that's guaranteed. So it was just these few seconds in my day, but it changed my disposition. Now, let me tell you about some other times he's interrupted me. So this beautifully, I would say, distasteful yet green plate probably means absolutely nothing to you. Ask Adam. I will not let him throw out this green plate. So I was at work. It was pre-Adam, so I don't know, we're talking 15 years ago or something, who knows. At work, we're heading out to a lunch break. I worked in the city and I worked near Pitt Street Mall. And I felt this thought or hunch or this just drop, you need to go and buy a green plate. Yeah, righto, keep working. And then my spirit got agitated. I don't know if you've ever had that. There's something in you go, okay, I'm going to go buy a green plate. So I very cautiously decided to go to Maya thinking, am I actually going to find a green plate? Who has green? It wasn't Christmas or anything, right? So there was one packet of green plates that I found and I giggled and I thought, all right, fine. There's green plates, but it was right before payday and I'm grateful. I have better financial management now, but there was not $20 in my bank account to pay for these green plates. And so I said, well, I found them. Good to know, I heard you right. And he said, buy the green plates. Okay, so you pick up the green plates, go to the counter. The lady's like, wouldn't you know, these are on sale today. And they were about $12 or something. So let me tell you what that has told me about God. That is every single time I look at that green plate, it reminds me that if he asks me to go and do something, he's got my back. And he's going to go with me, and he's going to resource me, and he's not going to let me down. And if he asks me to do something, I have to be obedient and say yes. Thank you, Sammy. The other one is this. This is a pair of sunglasses, obviously. I was sitting on a train also when I was working in the city, and some guy said, oh, here's your glasses. And I said, they're not my glasses. My glasses were on my head. And he goes, well, they're at your feet. They're obviously your glasses. And I'm like, mate, they're not my glasses. He goes, well, here you go. And he gave them to me. And so I did the thing you don't do on public transport. I interrupted the person next to me. Excuse me, are these your glasses? No. And the person in front of me, excuse me, are these your glasses? No. And I thought, well, okay, I know what to do with them. So I walked around like this in case somebody wanted to grab them when I got off the train. I didn't want to feel like I was stealing them, right? Took them to work and they're Oriton sunglasses. And I thought, okay, I'll look up Oriton sunglasses. Now, on the inside of the arm is the name of the design of it, and it's called Josette. I was like, oh, wonder what that means. Josette means Jehovah will increase. Right? So here I am walking around now with 2 pairs of sunglasses. Now, can I tell you, at the end of, or halfway through that year, we went through what I would describe as some of my darkest, soul-crushing moments as a family between Adam and I. And the waves just kept coming. You know when life just keeps hitting you and you think, I don't know if I'm going to be able to breathe yet next, you know? But what happened in those moments is, if there was ever a moment where I think, dear Jesus, where are you? I'd forgotten about these, right? Because you wear them every day. They're great for glare reduction, just saying. On the inside, in gold, says Josette, and every time I needed Jesus, where are you? The gold on the inside would flick, just with the light. And I would look at it, and I would see it, and I would take a big breath, and I would know that he was in there with me. So they're just 2, while I was at work and on a train. P.S. Don't interrupt people when you're on the train. They don't really like it. So I know in the past, these sort of moments I would have missed. Or I may have just handed the sunglasses to somebody else. Or I may have just given them in at work and not kind of taken the moment to have a little look around. But what I'm saying is, it wasn't a famous preacher, wasn't a prophet, wasn't someone with the microphone, and it wasn't during an amazing worship moment, but it was doing something I had done the day before, and I did the day after. But that day, Jesus interrupted me and needed my attention for something. The power contained within those moments, I can tell you about. So that plate is like 11 years old. No, what did I say? 15? I can't remember. 15. I think it was about, I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I told you how old I was. It was about 15 years ago, and I can look at that green plate and it takes me back into that moment and my memories with him. So these moments when Jesus is right on with you, one-on-one, in your mundane, he's right next to you, and he's being who he is, meeting you right where you are at. So let's have a think about tomorrow. We're going to come out of here, we're going to hit our Monday or our mundane. What voice is going to be the voice that gets your attention? Is it going to be the person who had the microphone on the Sunday? Is it going to be the podcast or the YouTube preacher that you're waiting for their message to drop? It could be your friend or a leader. It could be the praise or the criticism of another person. It could be your partner or your best friend's opinion. You could be rereading your message from the prophet who visits and you just want him to say a name. Or it could be the demands of the needs to, haves to, should do, could do, can't wait, don't forget pressures that are waiting for us just as we exit outside that door. So which voice has the amplification? One moment, please. It's not been my morning, and we are all okay with that. Which of these voices are going to have the amplification in your world as you head out into your Monday? Is it the whisper of God, the nudge of the Spirit, and the truth of his word? These are the voices that need the most amplification in our life. And I can guarantee you they're not going to get the same amount of airtime as everything else. My kids will be continually hungry and they will need something and demand something from me, and they will keep saying something, and then the email will go, and then my phone will go, and then the TV will be on too loud, and then Jaxie's crying for something, and then Adam's saying, hey, we haven't had enough time together. And in the middle of that, I need to somehow work out how to get the whisper of God, the nudge of the Spirit, and the truth of his word, so it can cut through all of that noise and be the loudest thing that I hear. These should have the most weight in terms of their influence in how or what we do in our days. They should have the ability to stop us in our tracks, and I'm talking about a few seconds in your day or your week, and to listen to what he's saying or what it is he wants to draw our attention to. And these are those moments where he's exactly what you need, whether you knew you needed that from him or not. He interrupts your thoughts. When he interrupts your thoughts and tells you to go and buy a green plate, or someone random gives you some sunglasses, or he interrupts your grumbling at the washing machine, it's not pretty. It's not a glamorous moment. It doesn't feel like the angels are singing and everything around me is building into that. But you know what? They're the ones where he's in the dirt of your reality. He's in the dirt, he's in the real with you. So don't discard it because it's not packaged like you think it should be. So let's have a look at the life of Simon Peter. So we're going to go back to Luke 5. I mean, this just fascinates me. Don't you wish you could go back and ask them some stories? So Jesus is preaching, right? And then I'm figuring he's got to be in earshot, because in verse 2, he said he saw the water's edge 2 boats left there by fishermen who were washing their nets. So Peter's in earshot of Jesus, I'm guessing, or Jesus went for a really long walk. Either way, Simon Peter is doing what he did every other day. He's finished his day at work, he's washing his nets, and I'm guessing he's prepping to go back out again tomorrow. This guy appears, says, hey mate, can I borrow your boat? Oh, by the way, while we're in it, can you just take me over there? Okay, just wait here. I'm just going to talk to the people. If we could just sit for a minute. And then a carpenter, this is my interpretation, right? This is how I think of these stories. I think, what would I do if I was Simon Peter? I'm like, okay, sure. I feel like if someone said, can you just drive your car over there and we're just going to sit there for a bit while I talk to people, and then, oh, can you get out and speak to that person because he's going to give you the business deal you need? I just think that's amazing. The ability of this guy is so cool. Anyway, so he's out on the boat with Jesus and a carpenter gives a fisherman fishing advice. Hey, you should throw your nets over there. I'd be like, yeah, cool, thanks, mate, great. But Simon Peter's response is, Master, we've worked hard, but because you say so, I will let down the nets. So one sentence from Jesus and one response from Simon, an act of obedience, changed Simon Peter's life. And all he was doing was at work that day, doing what he did the day before. Put down into deep water and let down the nets. Because you say so, I will let down the nets. To me, that's a life-defining mundane interruption. When Jesus rocks up, meets you what you were doing the day before, and you'll probably do again, but yet he says something that changes you. And together as a team, he says something and we respond. We move forward and our lives are changed. The reason these are so important is because the same God that we sing about today, the beautiful God we worship, the beautiful God who loves us and can do anything, he's the same God who's there tomorrow and on Tuesday and on Wednesday and on Thursday and on Friday and on Saturday. Now, our church gatherings, and I mean church as in not just this, right? But I mean like Sundays, discipleship, friends gatherings, moments where you get together with other people and you get to talk about Jesus. They're so encouraging. Keep doing it. I'm not saying don't do that. The reason I think they're so encouraging and these moments feel so rich is because the sound that we hear in here, it's a unified sound. And we don't have a lot of interruptions that are going on while we're here. My kids aren't asking me for food. I don't need to do the washing. What I'm doing here is I'm sitting in a sound that is amplified by the people around us. That sound is Jesus is King. Oh, thanks, Dad. Jesus is King. We are servants with our lives laid down and we're here to serve him. And the power of hearing that with everybody around us is so incredibly encouraging. And the atmosphere that creates, you know what, we don't get it in the rest of our week as much, do we? That's why we can treasure these moments so much. And we've set our time aside to be here. We've put our attention here. We're choosing to be present in the room, present with Jesus and present with people. So what happens then when we're not in these environments, when we're not surrounded by people who have the same heartbeat for us and want to glorify Jesus the same way we do? What do we do then? What's happened? Has God changed? Has the conference God, who became the Sunday God, who became the Monday God, has that actually happened? Trick answer, no. How do we know? Hebrews 13:8. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So if he hasn't changed, what's changed? We've changed. The environment we find ourselves in, the situations we're in, the people we're talking to, the demands and needs on our pressures, on our time, on our attention, the things we have to get to. Like, there is a reality of things we have to get to. So the question is then, when we sing about the God of the impossible on a Sunday, what are we expecting from the God of our mundane? Has our disposition towards who he is and what he can do, has that changed? So how can we encourage... Good Lord. Ugh, never mind. That's my dad. One day I will share with you how funny that actually is. Okay. So how do we encourage the God of our mundane to be, the God of our Sunday conference God to be our Monday God, and he all be the same? We look for him. We intentionally take time and effort to look for him in our week. And I'm a very practical person. If you've known me for at least 2 minutes, you would work that out. So when I mean look for him, I don't mean weird and put Jesus on everything and everything is Jesus. No, it's not. Because we are in two worlds. We're in this world and we're inviting heaven in. So if I eat a banana, it's not prophetic. I'm just hungry. Just so. However, what I can do is have a disposition towards being aware that he can interrupt me in my week. So there is a difference between learning what is prophetic, where he is trying to interrupt you, when he is trying to communicate with you, and when things just happen. And we're all learning the difference between those two, aren't we? Because he never wastes an opportunity to speak to us, and he never wastes an opportunity to get our attention. So it's not always obvious to know where to find him, or where he is, or where he may be in my week. But we know that if we look for him, if we seek him, we can be assured we will find him. And how do we know? Because we said so in Hebrews 13:5, Jesus is the same yesterday and today. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Never mind. He will never leave us or forsake us. Corrected. Thank you. That means he can be found. If he never leaves us and never forsakes us, he can be found. He said it himself, not me. I'm just reminding you of what he said. And if he promises, if you seek, you shall find, and the door will be opened. That's in Matthew 7. Now, seeking and knocking, they're both action words. It requires you to do something. So seeking is I'm looking, I'm going in search of, I want to discover, I want to question. I'm going to try to obtain or to try to attempt or to go to. Seeking is a doing something. It requires me to do something. Same as knocking. Knocking is to strike a surface loud enough that the other person on the other side can hear you. So say, for example, I invited you over to my house for lunch. You would have to do some very practical things to actually get to my house so you can knock. You would have to hopefully get dressed, although if you came in your pajamas, I would let you right in, it's fine. You would have to get dressed, know how to drive, get in the Jeep, turn on the GPS, actually follow the instructions of the GPS, get to my house. And when you get to my house, I can guarantee you, you would have to knock hard enough so that I can hear you across the chaos of what's on the inside. So I can invite you to lunch, but it's going to take a whole lot of things for you to get there. So what does that mean? If we do our part, he's saying, I will answer the door. All we got to do is our part and knock. It's not complicated. It's not difficult. Because you know what? He knows where to find us. He knows where to find us in our week. Most of it is because we do a lot of routine, but all of it is because he's with us all of the time. Now, his voice can very, very easily get drowned out through life. It happens to all of us. daily, if not on multiple occasions, okay? Nobody's excluded from this. The voice of Jesus, it drowns out. So if it's the noise of life, or you forgot to invite him into your everyday, or you're just not sure on where to find him, it's, you're feeling a little bit paralyzed of like, I don't know what to do next. He will come and find you in your mundane. He doesn't need loudspeakers or a worship team to give you a life moment encounter that can change you with him. He needs your attention, your heart posture, and so that when he speaks, he knows he can grab your attention, if only for a minute. All right. One moment, please, because I actually need this for the next bit to work. All right. Can anybody tell me, well, it's a bit of a trick question, I won't make you answer me, what these 3 pictures have in common? There is a common thread in all of them, I promise. The common thread is, these are the modern day versions of where Jesus met people in their mundane. Whether it was at the kitchen sink, on their commute somewhere, or in their pain, Jesus found them. Image 1, the kitchen sink, the woman at the well in John 4. She went to the well like any other day, doing a very normal mundane thing of gathering water, which is very important. That day, Jesus was waiting for her. That day, Jesus had a conversation with her that changed her day. It changed her family life. It actually changed her community, the story she's told. Yet she was doing something, and she probably went back the next day and did it again. But that day, Jesus was waiting for her. What about the second one? Your daily commute. When some random guy hands you sunglasses. No, I'm kidding. If that happens to you, please come and tell me. It's a little bit of a funny story. What about if you were on your way to Emmaus? In Luke 24, like Cleopas and Simon. En route in the daily travels, walking from one place to another, not doing anything exciting, Jesus walks beside them. He has a chat. He ends up dining and eating with them. And it's one of those life-changing moments that seems so simple, yet Jesus was so present. And the last one is, Jesus will find you in your pain, in your home, in the things that matter to you. Because in Luke 8, Jesus raises a dead girl and heals a sick woman. Now, they are two significant things to do. I'm not saying that's a non-mundane thing to do. I understand the miraculous. What I want to point out is that's 2 different families, and Jesus met them individually with where they're in their pain. Death is a pain, sickness is a pain. They came from different worlds. They had different influences in their community, but Jesus stopped and he was able to be one-on-one with those people in their pain where they were at. And that's the Jesus that I know. And we know that he found Peter at work, simply cleaning his nets. So while we're doing the normal day, taking very practical and they feel like very non-spiritual steps, I will continue on with what I need to do in my mundane until he catches my attention. Now, are you living in a way that he can interrupt you, and that when he speaks, he can listen, you will listen? How can he capture your attention during the week? How can he capture your task at hand? Are you just rolling through the routine over and over and not even having space to stop and ask him? So this word is the name Zalia. Okay, can anybody just help me out here? This is a bit of a poll. Has anybody, apart from my daughter, heard the name Zalia before? Okay, a few people, not many. So I was driving home, I was pregnant with Zalia. We didn't know whether it was a boy or girl, that was by choice. And I was on Windsor Road, outside the Bull and Bush, sitting at the set of lights. And like hovering in my windscreen is the word Zalia. And I'm like, okay. I was like, is that an African nation I should be praying for? Right, that was actual thought. I was like, I don't know what to do with that. So I met up with Adam and I was like, I was driving here and I saw this word Zalia. Do you know if it's an African nation or something? He's like, I don't know, why don't we just Google it? So, we Googled it and it's a girl's name. And we went, that's interesting. And Zalia means heaven on earth, sea strength and princess. So we figured at that point, he's probably trying to talk to us about something. But Adam didn't actually like the name. So every time we had a girls' names list, it always kind of got tacked on at the bottom. It was kind of like an afterthought. And she was born, obviously, and she came out. And the name we were going to call her is Arabella. And we really wanted a Bella, and it was going to be really cute. And she was born, and I was like, oh, that's not Arabella. And he looked at me, and he goes, nope, that's Zalia. I was like, yes. Thank you, Jesus. All right, this is a good one. So, how good is life in community, can I just say? So Jen Moffat in COVID sent me this beautiful card, and it sparked me back into doing creative journaling, which I haven't done in ages. It was the perfect thing I needed. And I felt like I do like mixed media, I just cut and stick paste, bit of collaging. I'm not a very good drawer, but anyway. And I felt this, you should go and Google images of rainbows. I'm like, okay. So literally got up, Googled images of rainbows. And I mean, there are thousands of pictures of rainbows, right? Thousands and thousands. So I'm scrolling through and this image literally felt like it jumped out the page and hit me in the face. It's just like, oh. And at that moment, God reminded me something that he had challenged me with. I had written 2020 off as a year. I was bunkering down the hatches. I was just, we had fire. The country I love, I just love Australia. The country I love is burning to the ground with no solution on how to fix it. Then we're counting the days till we're running out of water and we're not going to be able to drink. Then we're flooded. Now, I didn't have any personal flood experiences, but watching the heartache of the people in the nation that I love and everything they have just washed away. And then we go into a global pandemic, right? So you can sort of see why we went, well, it's March 2020. I had a lot of hope for 2020 as a great year. But I had written 2020 off. I'm like, let's bunker down. Let's get to the end of this. We're all going to make it. We're all going to be okay. This image stopped me in my tracks and poured a bunch of hope into my spirit. Because I knew that we had weathered so many storms already this year. But what this image spoke to me is at the end of this year, there are promises. God's promises is waiting for us in this year. Or maybe just for me. It's okay. I think it's for us. I'm happy to share it with all of you. God's promises is waiting. The rainbow is such a significant sign of God in so many ways. And so that turned my disposition from 2020 around into a year that I'd written off and was just like, we're all just going to survive and we're all going to be okay, to a year that I know there is goodness coming and there are great things ahead and I have hope and I have excitement into what the second half of 2020 is going to bring. The other thing I want you to bring to your attention is while we're in the storm, Jesus has been with us. Remember when we were praying for rain, praying, because the fires were literally burning at a rate that we could not contain them. And we prayed and we prayed and we prayed. And the rain fell and squashed the fires, killed the fires, gone. And I found a newspaper article that I sent to Adam, and it said, some are calling this a miracle because the weather pattern that was there said that this couldn't happen. Then we're running out of water. What did we do? Our dams are nearly full, right? Now, I don't know what happened in the floods, and I'm sure if you found anybody in the floods, there'll be thousands of stories of where God spoke in. And we're in the middle of a pandemic, but if you speak to other people, there are moments where God has not wasted a moment to either bring you closer with each other or to bring you closer to him or to celebrate milestones or to do things together. It's been hard, but he's been right in the middle of it. So the other one is what I call memory stones. I'm just giving you some ideas of what this could look like for you. So God and I have memory stones and they're kind of seasonal. I ask him for one. And what it is kind of something that I look for in my world that reminds me to stop and look for him. So for this year, I don't know why, I'm still journeying it with God, it's bees. Now I can tell you, This did not come in a very dignified moment. I was on my back deck doing the washing, hanging the washing out this time. Amazing, step 2. And this bee was kind of flying around our herb garden. And, I was being like, it's a bee. That was a little bit my response. And it's sort of buzzing. And it was like a bumblebee. It was so weird. I've never seen one before, and I haven't seen one since. Apparently they do exist in Australia. They're just very rare. Because it was like furry and whatever. Anyway, it's buzzing around, and I'm like getting away. And then I'm trying to get in the door. And every time I went towards the door, the bee kind of swung across the door. Then the bee comes swinging around my head. I'm telling you this, right? Because this is not a glorious moment to get a God spark. So I'm doing this, right? While the bee's swinging around my head. Then I had a thought, God, is this my memory stone? The bee instantly left and flew away. So what's left for me now? So Jesus and I were talking about, so every time I see a bee now, I see honeycomb, I see honey, he has my attention. Jesus, this is something you want to say to me. Jesus, this is something I need to learn. And I'm personally researching on the back end, like what bees are, how they do, how they work. There's a whole bunch of things in that for me. But that's just something, that's a language Jesus and I have got together. So if he wants to show me something, very high attention, he'll bring a bee to me, and I know to look for him. So what other ways can he interrupt your mundane? They're just a few examples that I had in mind. So it could be an inspiration to a work problem that just kind of like drops in your head. You're like, oh, I see, this is what we need to do. Could be the hunch to call a sales lead. Could be the need to read a certain page of your textbook, and then you find in the exam that exact question is sitting there waiting for you. Could be the encouraging word that someone says that goes deep into your heart and just refreshes your soul. It could be a text message of love. It could be a certain song that comes on the radio and brings back this beautiful memory. I don't want to get stuck into what it could look like for you, because that's for you and Jesus to work out together, and that's the really fun part. It wouldn't help you if I told you all the ways Jesus and I communicate, because it's the two of you in a relationship together to work that out. But we need to do our part. We need to be our part of the process. So when I say look for him, I'm talking about doing your part to make space that you can find him in your everyday. So do activities, build moments, provide opportunities that he can speak to you and that you're willing to listen. Here are some suggestions. I need to read my word. I need to have an open conversation with him, that when I pray in the morning, I keep the prayer going all day until I say amen at the end of the night, and I have a conversation with him all day. I will invite him into my day. One of the first things I can do in the morning is to get up and say, Jesus, can you come with me today? Can we be in this together? Practice silence and solitude. Keep giving him your praise and your thankfulness. Hand over your worries to him. Yes, again and again. Keep handing them over. Be obedient when he asks to do something. Journey and share with people. Receive wise counsel from others. Listen and read. Stop and listen if he's in a moment, if only for a few seconds. So invite him into our week, into our everyday, and let's be willing to be interrupted, because it's not going to feel spiritual. It'll feel like something you did the day before, but the opportunity sitting in there could change your perspective. It could unlock your freedom, can call out your identity, give you the business breakthrough you need, or connect you with amazing friends. So friends, I'm asking, what does he have to do to get your attention this week? How can you make your mundane interruptible? What sounds do you need to turn down to increase the volume of the God whisper? It could be less time listening to the news, less time on social media. Turning off notifications on your phone is very ironic. Embracing moments of silence and solitude. And maybe you just do that when you're driving. You choose not to have the radio on, and that's going to be your silent time. What activities or time have you prioritized to know the truth of his word? I want to set the expectation as you're going this week and every week that some of your most defining journeys of discipleship, moments in your journey of discipleship, they're going to be when you're one-on-one with Jesus in your mundane. Don't underestimate the power of being with him in your mundane. Bless you, church.